Our workshop is going to be introducing how we work in Shropshire with people to people. We are an independent social enterprise. We're a staff-led mutual, and we're part owned by local people who get involved on the board of directors and through a forum called the Advisory Group. So we're going to be describing that different way of working. Mary chairs the advisory group, or has done for the last 3 years, and I'll ask Mary to talk in a moment about how that works and the role of peer support planners. One of the important things about people to people is that we have encouraged the staff, the social workers, to work really closely with local people. It's a very community-based, outward-focused looking organisation. I should also say that we deliver all of the adult community-based social work and occupational therapy in Shropshire at the moment. We don't do mental health and we don't do hospital social work, but we do everything else. So one of the things we've done really differently is the way that we support people when they first contact the council for support. And I must also stress it's very much a partnership with Shropshire councils to how we work. So we work very closely with their first point of contact team. They have really good conversations with people that start informing what we call a personal profile. And if they can't signpost or redirect the person or resolve the issue there and then the person is invited into one of our Let's Talk Local sessions. Now, those are community-based forums where our practitioners and might involve a qualified or an unqualified member of staff are working there. They're in all of the communities across Shropshire. I think we're now running 14 in the market towns, and we have a presence there 1 day a week at least in those 14 places. So people are booked into a relatively short, up to an hour session, and in the vast majority of cases resolve the issue there and then. If somebody does need a full assessment and more intervention, then the social worker might visit them in their own home, but more often than not they would still see them in the community hub, and that assessment but also the support planning then takes place. Now, we also have peer support volunteers that get involved in that process, and if a social worker can't resolve the issue or feels that the support plan in question needs more time, more depth going into, and that the person wants to talk to other people that have been through it and some additional support advice to lead that process, then they are referred to our support planning team, of which Mary is one. And the support planning sessions take a whole variety of guises and can be much longer or shorter, but I'll let Mary describe how they work.
We now have actually a support planning team as part of people to people, as opposed to an independent practice, which is what's going to be happening in Doncaster. And part of that team aren't just paid workers, but they will be individuals like myself who've had experience of the service in its good and its bad forms, but can just have a more honest conversation with individuals around their life and their needs. Those sessions, they're usually with a group of us, so it might be a support planner, a peer supporter, it might involve an advocate for the individual, it might involve the social worker and other community groups. Though not usually in that very first one, there might just be 2 or 3 of us. And that first session will always be a very open-ended conversation. We always work with the Helen Sanderson tools. They've been the real core of how we've worked, so that they've given us the advantage of really getting to know people and what's important to them. So we've all had training about working with those tools, and we'll just pick and choose what is appropriate to the individual as we're going. So that initial support planning session will be to really draw together what is important to an individual, but the responsibility is on everybody's hands, and it's one of the big cultural changes that I myself have seen develop, not only in the way that we work, but in social work in general. I think that is happening, that everybody's having much more involvement. So rather than, as traditionally things were maybe done to you or for you by a social worker, everybody's part of it. Quite often we will have 2 or 3 sessions. So in between that time, we will all go away with something that we need to explore. So we'll all take on a responsibility and go away and do some research and look at what is out there in the community that the person either already uses or might be able to make use of. So that rather than look at funded things first, we take that first and look at what is local to people. So we'll all go away and do some research and then come back and look at that further before the support plans develop further. So cost isn't something that we look at initially. I know maybe traditionally, people have been given an indicative amount and they work their support plan in relation to that. Well, that's not a process that tends to happen within our boundaries.
The money isn't talked about first off, is it at all?
Yeah.
No.
And I suppose that becomes a secondary thing that if a need can't be met in locally or within a family member or friends or another organisation, that we can either signpost on or get involved in part of it.
What we're hoping to achieve in the workshop is, I suppose, that people get a sense that there's another way of doing this. There's another way of delivering social work. There are other opportunities for social workers to work much more closely with the community. I think we tend to hide the social work profession behind a lot of council barriers and security barriers, and it's very hard for someone to see a social worker. We have social workers literally off the high street and in the town hall and in the community centre. And I suppose that what we're trying to do is just inspire people that there are other ways of doing this, and we've got some experience of that we're looking forward to sharing.